How's it going, everyone? GameXA here, and I hope y'all are doing well. Today we have 3 Xbox related news stories to dive into, and if you find the video entertaining or informative, don't forget to snipe the like button. First story is an update on Xbox's first party game, Redfall. I believe that was positioned to be the first major first party exclusive from Xbox in 2023, but we're going to pull up a story from insidergaming.com titled Redfall internally delayed again, leaks claim. And reading from the article itself, it seems that Redfall, Arcane's open-world vampire-slaying adventure, has suffered yet another delay, as it was originally set to launch in summer of 2022, but was pushed back to the first half of 2023. In a tweet, prominent leaker Okami Games revealed from insider sources that Redfall has been delayed yet again, this time by about 6 weeks. Reportedly, Redfall is Arcane's most ambitious game ever, and that's coming from the studio that developed the Dishonored franchise as well as Prey and Deathloop. We're going to scroll down a bit. Redfall is described as a unique open-world first-person shooter, giving the player the ability to assume control of one of 4 talented characters. However, owing to this latest bout of information, players will have to wait longer than expected to get their hands on the game, despite never actually having a confirmed release date in the first place. So the article does mention Redfall never had an official release date, but I do believe in the Xbox Bethesda presentation midway through 2020, it was at least positioned to be releasing earlier than 2023, that and at least before Starfield. That said though, 6 weeks is not that long of a wait, and if the game gets more stable or more content because of it, then that's a good thing overall. When reading through some of the comments or replies to the source's tweet, nobody seems to question the source's credibility. That's Okami Games. So I think this is probably a credible source. It seems true. One of the bigger issues I saw echoed in the comments though is the realization of just how long it's going to be before getting a AAA first party exclusive from the Xbox team, despite them owning so many studios at this point already. It's estimated to be about 17 months or over without a AAA first-party Xbox game, that is if the source is correct. Not saying they should release more unfinished games, but that is an interesting statistic. But also, I don't know if that even matters necessarily if you have other games to play. Chime in with your thoughts in the comment section. Next up though, we're going to look at a cool trend for game companies that find Xbox as the odd one out not participating in this. And we're going to pull up an article from windowscentral.com. Xbox is the only platform that didn't offer your 2020 end-of-year gaming stats, which is odd. Steam, PlayStation, and Nintendo all offered their customers an end-of-year stats roundup, but there's one major player that was suspiciously absent. That's Xbox. Popularized by Spotify Wrapped, major service and data-driven companies have taken to offering end-of-year fun stats and figures for their customers to wrap up and round off the year. This year, it feels like more companies than ever had an answer to Spotify Wrapped, with gorgeous graphics and interesting data points that showcased their users' activity on their platform. Spotify showcases your music and podcasts, as well as genre tastes and so on, and the same is true for gaming platforms too. This year, it was True Achievements who stepped up to offer the same 2020 stats showcase for Xbox, though, as Microsoft bowed out. And the article continues, increasingly, I do wonder how much of Xbox's engineering bandwidth budget is being vacuumed up by Xbox Game Pass in recent years. As such, I suspect any Xbox Wrapped Stats retrospective was probably sacrificed on the Xbox Game Pass pyre. The article continues, I've written before about my concerns that Xbox relies far too much on telemetry over human intuition. The lack of end-of-year stats in itself isn't a big deal, but it is a symptom of a wider problem Xbox seems to have right now. At the end of the day, the only thing that matters is new Xbox games, and they're well and truly on the way. But how come other platforms find time to squeeze in fun and fresh platform features? If it doesn't fit into an Xbox Game Pass spreadsheet in some form, are platform features no longer important? I'm starting to wonder, is how the article ends. Now the article is 100% correct in mentioning that this is not a sign of the end of Xbox or any kind of problem necessarily. It might even be considered a positive to have them trim the fat of unused features. Instead, the article laments the apparent loss of fun and odd features the Xbox used to have and innovate on in favor of promoting Game Pass, which is an interesting way to think about what other things Xbox might have invested in if Game Pass didn't seem to steal all the spotlight from anything else. But I do wonder if one of the reasons Xbox did not show your most played game statistics is because they think it might discourage people from resubscribing to Game Pass, for instance. If they see how much they actually used it, or didn't use it for that matter, then they might not consider resubscribing or turn off that automatic subscription. But I don't have any kind of game subscription service, so if you do, let me know how much you play it and if you think it's worth it. Moving on though, we have yet another update in the seemingly endless string of news related to the Microsoft Xbox attempt to acquire Activision Blizzard. This one is coming from Microsoft's response to the US Federal Trade Commission's complaint over the deal. And we're going to read from gamesindustry.biz with an article titled Microsoft calls FTC unconstitutional, the Federal Trade Commission that is. Microsoft yesterday filed its response to the US Federal Trade Commission's antitrust complaint over its proposed acquisition of Activision Blizzard, as reported by CNBC. The 37-page response covers numerous arguments Microsoft has already made in public or to other regulators, stating a lack of incentive to make Call of Duty exclusive, a desire to grow its minimal footprint in the mobile gaming space, and painting Sony's protestations as those of a dominant market leader looking to hinder disruptive innovation that could benefit consumers. However, it also took issue with the FTC itself, and we're just reading the highlights of the article here. So Microsoft is quoted in the response stating, the structure of these administrative proceedings in which the Commission both initiates and finally adjudicates the complaint against Microsoft violates Microsoft's Fifth Amendment due process right to adjudication before a neutral arbiter. It said, beyond its arguments, Microsoft also acknowledged in its response that it intends to make 3 future ZeniMax titles exclusive to the Xbox and PCs. While the names of those games were redacted, Microsoft said all 3 are designed to be played primarily alone or in small groups. It contrasted that to Call of Duty by saying Activision's shooter was more analogous to ZeniMax games it has continued to support on multiple platforms like Fallout 76 or Elder Scrolls Online, but these games are designed to be played together by broad communities of gamers on different platforms. So I think there's a few key points to take away from what Microsoft said here. As far as them comparing Call of Duty to Fallout 76, the Call of Duties that are already on PlayStation, I don't think anyone's talking about the potential of them being removed from PlayStation. Like Warzone, for instance, will probably stay on PlayStation, but it's more like Warzone 2 or whatever the sequel to that might be. And then any Call of Duty single player game, you can even argue they might separate the single player component from future Call of Duty games and give the same reasoning that they did for the ZeniMax games, that they're mostly single player and meant to be played alone or in a small group, so that they're going to make those exclusive to Xbox. And if Xbox didn't have a problem keeping Call of Duty on PlayStation, then they would just sign a deal and make concessions with the Federal Trade Commission. Instead, I think they want to have leverage power over the contracts. So that's why they're making direct deals with Nintendo and Steam and trying to get Sony on board before the FTC signs a more broad deal or contract. Concerning the FTC, the main issue Microsoft appears to have with the Federal Trade Commission itself is they appear to be able to play the role of judge, jury, and executioner, but in the legal sense. This implies either my understanding of the FTC process is incorrect, or Microsoft is purposefully misrepresenting the function of the FTC. As I understand it, the FTC does not have the final say in whether or not the deal goes through, but they evaluate mergers and acquisitions. If they find the deal to be anti-competitive or anti-consumer, they then begin building a case against the deal to take to court if certain concessions or compromises cannot be made to allow the deal to go through. Now, the part Microsoft I think is confused about or is misrepresenting is that the FTC has something like a test judge internally that looks at the case and determines if it's good enough or not to proceed. This is not the final step in the process though, as Microsoft can still dispute this in court, and I don't think they would need to appeal to, say, the Supreme Court, for example. For instance, in a basic legal case, if you lose your case on a municipal city level, I believe you can appeal to a higher court, like the state, for instance. And if that also fails, you can then appeal to like a federal court. but you cannot have the case retried in the same jurisdiction or same area, essentially. This just shows whatever the FTC's internal judge rules does not hold any legal weight and only has power within the FTC itself. Like, I think his decision can impact whether the FTC moves forward or not with the case, but it's not like the final say in the matter. But I'm not a legal professional, and I get most of my knowledge about this case from the Hogue Law YouTube channel. I'll leave a link down in the description. That being said, let me know if I'm misunderstanding the way the FTC operates here, or if you have any other thoughts on the matter as well. I'm really interested to hear what people think about this situation. But that is all for the news today. Feel free to comment about anything we talked about down below. I always try to respond and love hearing from y'all. Don't forget to snipe the like button if this helped kill some time. Consider subscribing if you haven't already to support the channel. But most of all, thanks for watching GameXA.